First one is to do a lot of research because there are a lot of companies out there hiring remotely. We know because when we interview candidates, they tell us what other companies are considering. You want to make sure that you've done all your research to consider all your options.
Want to discover new parts of the world while filling the pet-shaped hole in your heart? House-sitting website Trusted House Sitters gives you the chance to live as a local in over 130 countries, opening the door to a world of travel possibilities. And with thousands of pets looking for caring sitters like you every day, there's no doubt you'll discover the perfect travel opportunity with the perfect travel companion. Whether you want to wake up in a Spanish beach condo with a cat or a high-rise apartment in New York City with K9 Company, house sitting allows you to see the world in a new way. And not to worry if cats and dogs aren't your thing. Trusted House Sitters has pets of all shapes and sizes, from alpacas and horses to rabbits and hamsters. Find out more about house sitting and unlock a whole year of unlimited sits with adorable pets by visiting trustedhousesitters.com or download the Trusted House Sitters app on the Apple or Google Play Store.
Welcome to the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast, the show where we discuss what it takes to create a sustainable long-term online business in today's fast-moving environment. We talk with industry experts and freelancers alike to find out what it takes to build and manage a location-independent business.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast. I'm your host, Adam Finan, and today's guest is Nicolas Vandenberghe, who is the CEO of ChiliPiper.com. In 2016, he co-founded his fourth startup and presently is the CEO of the SaaS company ChiliPiper. Its mission is to reinvent the system of action of sales professionals to provide them with new levels of productivity and job satisfaction. The firm is reinventing scheduling, calendar, and inbox, the main apps used by revenue teams. ChiliPiper is a perfect guest as it is fully distributed, leveraging global talent with employees in 35 cities in 15 countries. Hi, Nicolas. Welcome to the show and thank you for joining us. Why don't you give us a little bit of a background into, how you got into working online and, what did that look like for you?
Yes, so as I said, the company is fully distributed and it was a strategy we took on from the beginning. I say we, so my wife is my co-founder, Alina. She has a background in product development. She and I love traveling. So she's from Romania. I'm originally French. And there were two reasons why we decided to go distributed like that. The first one is that we believe that there's talent everywhere. So coming from other countries, we figured that we found a lot of very talented people in these countries. And we know that there's the same level of talent everywhere. So we decided that we would, instead of being limited to a particular city, we would just access this talent everywhere. And the other piece is that we believe that people should, nowadays with remote work, people should live where they want. There's no constraint. Alina and I love traveling, so we apply it to ourselves. We're always on the move. And that was the foundation of how we did it. And from day one, we said we're going to hire people no matter where they are, and we're going to let them operate from where they want. So that's how it got started.
That's how it got started. And like you said, now you're up on 42 employees who are distributed around the world. So I guess when it comes to hiring for a company like yourselves, where is it that you go to find employees? Is it the freelancer? Is it your typical job boards? Is it specific ones? What would that look like for a company like yourselves?
No, it's something very interesting. There's the demand from workers to work remotely. And it's a combination of two things. Some of them can't find the right opportunity where they are. So, for example, we have a few people in Bratislava, Slovakia, where they wanted to work for an international company and couldn't find the right one where they were. And others are just people who want to travel, and so they're going to look for companies that enable that. So the number one source of talent for us is the remote sites, like we work remotely and other sites like that, where people volunteer to look for a company that's going to let them work from where they want. So that's by far been the biggest. On the sales side, because we sell to salespeople, so obviously we talk to a lot of salespeople. I must say a big source of talent has come from people who use our tool, they're our customer, and next they want to make a move and they call us and say, look, I quit my job. I want to work for ChiliPiper. obviously we do not want to go after our customers' employees. We never do, but very often we find that they will leave their job and reach out to us and come and want to work with us. And an additional that has worked, provided a lot of great resources.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that even with, Shopify. I work remote for Shopify Plus, and there's people who work on our team who've come from agencies, who used to work with merchants, and it's not that they left for Shopify; they just were leaving that job anyway, or they'd outgrown, or they'd grown as far as maybe they wanted to grow in that company, and they were looking for something different, and then they come over,
That's right.
and that's just how it happened. It's just kind of natural. So, can we talk a little bit about the tool? Like you're saying, it's for sales teams. What problem does this tool solve?
So let me give you the big picture, the vision, why I started the company. As you mentioned, I had done several companies before. And at some stage, I helped a friend run a sales team for a telecom startup. And I was amazed when I got everybody to be on Salesforce, or CRM, that it was like a few years back, that Salesforce had not changed much, and they were all reluctant to use it. And I thought, that's impossible. I mean, there are tools to do everything. There's tech to do everything. There's got to be a much better way to help salespeople do their job. And so I decided that it was time for me to go back to doing entrepreneurship, and that was the problem I was going to address. I love sales. I love selling. I love talking to salespeople, and I love starting companies. So I thought putting the two together is the way to go. And the next question is, okay, that's all very well. That you envision that you're going to help salespeople, but how? Right? What is it that you do? Thought was, what is it that they use and they need to do in their job? And the obvious answer is that they send email, they book meetings, they make phone calls, they hold meetings, right? And so everything is happening in their calendar and their inbox. So from day one, we thought, okay, that's where we need to be. We need to reinvent their calendar and their inbox and the phone system to help them do their job better. And they say, okay, so that's all very well, but how do we go about it? And so it's like you go from that big vision to now let's get started. And you can't just say, here's a new email client, tell me what you think of it. We had to find a problem that's very specific that we could solve. And we knew we could get immediate customers and paying customers. So that problem came to us from a company called 5-Star. They said, we have this problem where we have prospecting teams calling people, and they need to book a meeting for selling teams. But it's complicated because we need to distribute them. We need to round robin them and find the right people. And at the same time, we need to put in the calendar, so we need to find the right people, who's available, who's not available. So that was a little problem, right? And we thought, are you willing to pay for that? And say, we'll prepay $20,000. I said, well, it looks like a good sign. And then I call other companies and say, hey, do you have that problem? Yeah, would you pay for it? Say, yes, we'd pay for it. So we got started with that problem of scheduling, and that got us started. And then we got into a bigger problem. So now I'm going to talk about what we're really doing now. Our big business is a simple problem that was unresolved until us, which still puzzles me. When companies, especially B2B companies, spend a lot of dollars on marketing, and their call to action is request a demo or contact sales on their website. And when the prospects fill the form or request a demo, they get a page that says, thank you, somebody is going to call you. And the prospect is left wondering, who is going to call me when? Right? And then you get a call maybe in 10 minutes, maybe in 10 hours, maybe in 10 days. And companies are losing more than half their inbound pipeline that way. And that sounds like crazy to me. So we built a smart solution that gets into that form page. It's a piece of JavaScript that in real time get that data from the form, qualify the prospect, find the right rep to take the meeting. We can dial the rep in real time and connect with the prospect in real time, or we can retrieve the calendar and have the prospect book. And as a result, everything is done instantly and connected instantly. It seems simple. It was actually quite complicated to build, but now it's working beautifully. So we have companies like Intuit, Gainsight, HP, a lot of big logos using our solution because it's so much better.
I mean, you can see obviously on your on the homepage. I mean, I can see even Grow.io. I know they're one. I mean, everybody will be familiar with some of the others. Trip Actions. I use that regularly.
Twilio, Trip Actions. Now we have Airbnb. We actually Shopify the customer now, and so is Spotify. So we got all the
You've got all of them.
That's right. That's right. No, but for good reason. It's makes sense that you would take action immediately, and if software to do it on you these meeting requests, then you want to do it. And so that's our core business right now. And at the same time, we're working on a new inbox. So something super exciting that took us a long time to develop, but we're getting there. It's this idea that when you're in sales, very often when you're interacting with the customer, you need to discuss that interaction with somebody else. So either you are going to ask your boss, what should I respond? Right? They say, look, he says he can't do it until next month, or he's not the decision maker. What do you recommend I say? And so right now, the solution for that is people Slack and say, hey, or get on a call, say, hey, can I pick your brain this problem? When now with a collaborative inbox, you just have a comment and chat directly in the inbox. So when you get an email from a customer, you can just ping somebody who's going to help you and say, hey, look at this thread. What do you suggest I do? Or can you help me with this and that? Simple, at least apparently. It looks simple, but it's very powerful. So we are going to launch that in the coming months. And that's a second piece towards our view of reinventing the inbox and calendar of salespeople.
Yeah, it brings the conversation, it centralizes the conversation because, when you take things out into Slack or Skype or whatever other tool people are using to message, things can get lost in translation. Somebody else could pick it up and they didn't understand the context of the situation because they weren't privy to it. They never read it. So all these things are very important, especially when it comes to sales, because you're just moving people along the pipeline, hopefully, and all of that context is super important.
You're exactly right. Plus, often reps represent things differently, right? So you say, my customer is very angry, we need to act immediately. And then you look at the email and there's just a slight touch that you say the customer is slightly frustrated, right? And others do the opposite, right? Say, are we okay? And you look at it and say, Jesus, you're going to lose the deal. So by having the full access and full context, you're able to do a much better job.
The one thing that drives me mad about Slack is I wish you could do voice message on it. I'm just going to say that's the one thing about Slack, that it's like sometimes you just wish you could just send a wee 30-second voice message and it'd make things a lot easier than type.
Yeah, that's a good point. Voice carries a lot more information, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, even the new LinkedIn voice messaging has been quite useful. I've been using that a fair bit. And we spoke with the last guest, Daniel, and he runs a e-commerce, like an email and messenger marketing agency. And, they've started doing that on LinkedIn and it's been working really well for them as well. So
interesting.
Voice messaging but yeah, so it's just my own thing. It's just, I guess it's how people prefer to communicate, so for me it's like little voice messages, probably used to it because it's like WhatsApp, you use WhatsApp every day and you start to send voice messages, you have to sit down then and type and you're just like, can we not just talk this over? So with all of these, large companies that you've had coming in and starting to use your tool, I imagine, scaling up is always, a challenge for any business. You can bring on a new big company and it can become difficult. So how have you and your team managed, the scale and the growth of the company?
You're right. It's very challenging. We actually book more than 50,000 meetings every 7 days. So it's a lot of meetings that are going through our platform. First of all, I got super lucky. Very early on, we got an amazing CTO and an amazing lead engineer. We put together the right infrastructure. So we take advantage of the cloud. In our case, we had Google Cloud. We, from the very beginning, designed the system to do all the good things that you can do nowadays in terms of distribution of replication of servers. And gradually, we've developed additional controls and monitoring tools to make sure our system is up and running. So we just had a little problem last week. And I was talking to my CTO and said, look, we had a problem. And he said, yes, but look at our uptime. And our uptime is he said, we just dropped from 99.99 to 99.8% uptime, So it's working. It's taken a lot of focus, but, we understand that we are mission critical for our customers, right? Because if somebody comes to engage with them, they don't want to lose that opportunity. So we've taken that very seriously, and we've put the right tools in place.
Of course. And I mean, when it comes to technology, I know often the person using the technology wouldn't be happy. Same as if Zencaster just decided to crash right now, I wouldn't be very happy.
That's right,
Because
exactly.
we're in the middle of,
You're exactly
we're
right.
essentially using a cloud-based phone recording system. You know, like that's all that this is. This is a phone call through the internet. Me and you were speaking, and you know, and I rely on this technology for my podcasts, and you know, and then a different one for uploading and syncing out to all of the relevant, you know, feed channels or whatever, like out to Spotify and iTunes, and but I understand, I guess, working in the industry, that sometimes issues happen, but you know, often if you're on the front line and these things happen, you know, it can feel worse than it is. And it's good to hear that, you know, even if Google Cloud had a little bit of an issue, which it does from time to time, you know, I mean, almost when Google Cloud has an issue, the whole world knows, because next thing you know, Snapchat's down, Uber's down, you know, like everybody's down, you know, it's not just one person. It's like if Google Cloud gets hit,
It's like the same thing with Amazon. When AWS went down, the whole world
people
stopped.
realize how much, like,
Yeah.
basically the world's infrastructure is built on those two cloud services. You know, you're either AWS or your Google Cloud, or I wouldn't actually know what the third choice is these days. You know, so
Well, when Microsoft is there, but we don't see them because they tend to be a lot of a corporate. You know, the visible new tech companies, they tend to be Amazon or Google. So they affect our life more directly.
yeah, no, look, well, hopefully now there's not too much of that anyway. So, I guess when it comes to the customer base that you have, you know, do you have some problems that you see like over and over again, new clients that come in? Is it kind of repetitive, you know, in terms of the issues that people are facing, the struggles that they have in their sales team, and you know, that you can then provide a solution for?
We are, as I mentioned, very focused right now on our core product, which is this inbound automation, right? When prospects submit a form, making sure that this gets connected. And every company has their own process, so they have their own problems. You have some companies that want to go as fast as possible in touch with the prospect, so they use our dialing system, and they're going to have this issue of making sure that their reps manage their presence really well. So they, you know, if they go to the bathroom, they mark it on the computer and things like that. On the opposite, you're going to have large companies or companies that work with larger customers, like Gainsight, for example, that are going to be problematics more around qualification, make sure that they get the right people. So there are all sorts of problems around the inbound. I guess that's what makes it complex and therefore interesting and defendable for us, because you have to do all sorts of logic on how to qualify a prospect, on how to connect a prospect in real time, how to route, how to disqualify a prospect, and so on. But
if this, then that.
what we're finding, what we're finding, that so there's something super interesting. When we first developed the product with this company called Segment as early customer, their VP at the time said, "Look, it makes sense intellectually that we shouldn't give a thank you page on our form, but I want to A/B test to make sure, because we data driven, we A/B test everything." So I say, by all means, I'd love you to A/B test, because we would also want to prove that we are right. We started an A/B test in the summer 17, and the test got interrupted halfway through. They came to us and said, "No, we're good. We've increased conversion plus 61%. So, you know, and we want to move forward. We don't need to waste the other half for much longer." And so when that happened, as you can imagine, we thought we're golden, you know, like we're about to change the world completely, because who would not want to increase the conversion rates by 61%? And it turned out that it's a bit more complicated, because the form is typically owned by marketing. The follow-up process is owned by sales. Sales has already deployed a bunch of people to follow up on these leads. And our solution is often perceived as bypassing these people, so these inbound SDRs. And so often there's some resistance. Right? Say everything is good. Marketing says, "Look, I'm doing my job. I'm capturing leads." Sales says, "I'm doing my job. I have inbound SDRs who are calling people well." And we are the in-between, right? And the in-between is always a touchy place to be. So we it's probably the reason why this opportunity has remained there for so long that nobody was addressing it, because it was something that neither marketing nor sales was complaining about. And so now it's our job to marketing and sales together. I think it was behind your question, what problem we see, because we see that marketing and sales, because they have different metrics that they're measured on, they do not necessarily see that putting the two together would make sense. So we have to educate the market. We have to bring them together at the table and say, listen, you could just be much better off if you collaborated on this new way to do inbound.
Yeah, like it's the whole education around it, because like you're saying, these people are measured on the KPI of how many people they brought through to the sales team, and then the sales team and how many calls they made, and you're kind of you're re-engineering the entire
Exactly.
situation. So and it's probably a technical officer or a director or somebody who's actually having the conversations, maybe or the head of sales or something who's speaking with you, and the other people, yeah, look, maybe they're just fair. I guess for some people there's a little bit of a fear for their job, a fear for their role, that am I going to be replaced by software?
Yeah.
And it's about educating them. It's not that you're going to be replaced, it's just that this is more efficient and more effective. We need to let's talk about it, essentially. Like let's see what it is, and then that'll allow you to focus on other aspects and other areas.
You're exactly right. There's definitely fear of losing their job. They call inbound SDRs, right? The people whose job it is to call prospect who have submitted a form, and for sure they are worried about their job. The other thing too is that human beings work with reference points. So these inbound SDRs, they compare to the outbound SDRs, and outbound SDRs make a lot of call and converts, I don't know, maybe 3 or 5% of the calls they make into meetings. The inbound SDRs, they're super happy because they convert at 40%. So it looks really, really good as when you take the reference point at the outbound SDRs. But of course, if you look at it differently and take a different reference point and you think, okay, so you're telling me that 100 people requested a meeting and only 40 of them got a meeting, then of course it's a very different equation, right? But we still have this reference where they compare themselves to outbound and think they're doing great. I've had a senior VP of operations at a very successful company tell me, I'm not touching my inbound process, I'm converting at 40%, as if it was the best that could be done. So now we've published, I think Grow is one of them, a bunch of case studies of companies that had hit a plateau around 40% conversion, put chili pepper in and jumped to 70 or 80% conversion. So we're trying to tell the world this is not the absolute ceiling. You don't need to settle for 40% conversion. You can do 80% conversion on your meeting request. But it's an education, yeah.
It is an education, and like you're saying, it's how it's framed and it's how it's perceived. Like you're saying there, when the inbound is at that and the outbound is much lower, you think, or you would be led to believe that that's good and it's performing well. And it's not until you see these other use cases where it goes up to 70-80% because it's all been routed correctly, because the software is doing what it's meant to do, that the situation can be vastly different in a more efficient and positive way. But you don't see it until you do it.
That's exactly right.
So it's kind of like you need the case, and this is where case studies and for yourself as a company, as a business, and most businesses, I mean, case studies are really important for SaaS companies. So have you found that collaborating with merchants and brands and companies who've used your software solution to be important for your marketing?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The leadership of other companies using our tool has helped us a lot. We actually had a determined strategy to go after the more visible people. We call it the bullseye strategy. After the target, you go after the bullseye, because we thought we're going to sign up as early customers, not only those companies that are early adopters, but also those that are influencers. So when you're in the space, there was a bunch of companies you look up to. You think that who's the best in marketing operation, who's the best in sales operation, who's the best in sales, right? The companies have good reputation for one thing or the other. And actually, I mentioned Segment. That's one. That's the reason why I went after them, because Segment is known for being super effective in marketing operations. It's their business, right? Their tool helps in that process. So having them as customer gave us a lot of credibility. and we've continued. And when we signed into it, that gives us credibility in the more enterprise world. And so we are gone after these institutional customers, make sure we mention them on the website, and we can quote them, and they can serve as references. That plays a big role for sure.
Of course, because people look at what other people are using. It's the same. I see it in e-commerce. You see it all the time. Like when certain brands, people just want to know who are they using, what tools are they using, and like you were saying, if you align with the best in market and the best in sales, you know that when other businesses are evaluating what is a tool stack, what should we be using, you're like, well, that's what Segment uses, that's what Grow, so we should use that. If it can work for them and they're bigger than us, or they're our competitor, then would it not make more sense to use?
Yeah, but it's a rational behavior, because that these guys know what they're talking about. They must have done their research,
Exactly.
right?
But you would like to hope so.
So it's yeah, right. Which they did.
No, but I'm only joking. Yeah. But no, look, so I guess, look, just coming towards the end of the episode, I know a lot of the listeners to the show are people who, run their own online business, but it's also freelancers and remote workers. So I guess just to circle all the way back, and ye are a company who hire a remote and distributed team. What are, some things that you can suggest for people who are looking for a remote position when you're hiring to stand out? Because, like you're saying, often it's on the job markets. We work remotely, and there's a number of other job sites where people can apply. But, based on your experience and the people, maybe it's not yourself who does it directly, but just, what do you feel like is a good advice for somebody who's looking to land a remote position? Do you have anything you could say to them?
Yes, well, the first one is to do a lot of research, because there are a lot of companies out there hiring remotely. We know, because when we interview candidates, they tell us what other companies are considering. You want to make sure that you've done all your research to consider all your options. I think silver lining way, the current problem with the coronavirus is also going to help, because more and more companies realize they should be more open to remote work, and so it's likely that it will start a new wave of remote position. So there are going to be more and more positions, and then from there, the way we hire is that we have a hiring process for each position that's very specific. So, a front-end developer, we hire a certain way, a QA manager, we hire a certain way. So we're really looking for expertise. So there's no better advice than to just make sure you pick an expertise, you focus, and you do a really good job at building your personal value in that expertise. It's the same. If anything, remotely, it's even more critical, because on one hand, you are competing with the world, right? So we go higher in all these places, because we look for talent, and so they are competing with all over the world. So you want to make sure that you're focused and you really build your expertise in your domain.
And make sure to research the company and what it is that they do extensively as well. So, because these things will come up in the interview, and even I remember the interviewing process for Shopify. There were like 5 interviews. It's just no joke.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It was 5 lengthy interviews, to get that remote position. It's not like a one-off. It's like 5 full-on Skype interviews, and some of them up to an hour long, and it is what it is, and that's the nature of remote work. Because I guess the difference is you don't have that trust. You don't see that person. You don't have the time to build a rapport with them. It's all virtual. It's all online. So it's it's just important to
yes, but that means the company. I see what we do. We have to be. It's a good thing, because we have to be more scientific about it, right? So we can't. You can't bring somebody and say, "Oh, we all like the woman. Let's hire her." It doesn't work that way. You have to test, and so you have to say, "How do we test for product management, for example? What?" And so we constantly looking for new and better ways to assess somebody, and I think we're doing a better and better job at it. And like you said with Shopify, just because we hire remotely doesn't mean we hire anybody. We're quite the opposite. We even more precise and filtering.
Of course, because you can have a better portfolio of candidates. Because if you're just looking in a local area, like let's say you're in, Paris in France or Lyon or something, and that's the cluster, and there's only a certain amount of people there who are going to be front end developers, and you have to pick from that pool. But it's very different when you say, well, we'll take a really good developer from the Ukraine, or Pakistan, or whatever. It doesn't matter where you are, China or South America. The quality of the candidates that you can get applying for the role can be exponentially higher than maybe if you were just in one little local cluster.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And that's the benefits of remote work, and that's why we love it, and that's why we push it.
Exactly.
Nicolas, so where can people find you online if they wanted to connect and reach out?
The best thing is to come to our website. Everything is posted there at chilipiper.com. So it's a play on words. Some people say chili pepper, but it's not pepper, it's piper, like a pipeline in sales. So chili piper. And if we're always hiring, so you'll find jobs to apply to. And if you're interested in using our solution, if you submit a form on our website, we of course use our own inbound processing system to process it. So you'll be in touch with us very quickly.
Brilliant. Nicolas, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to all the listeners for tuning in today.
My pleasure.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast. Head over to the website to access the resources and links mentioned in today's episode at digitalnomadcafe.com.